Hello everybody, welcome into today's live broadcast. It's Thursday, the 12th of September, 2024. I'm your host, CareyHolzman. Welcome in. Today, we are continuing on our theme of external USB4 SSD NVMe drive enclosures. Say that real fast 10 times. Welcome in to, say hello very quickly to our friends here in the chat, joining us early. No tardiness here. Let's see who's chomping at the bit to get started. Well, we have a bunch of new members. Oh, thank goodness. You guys, I'll tell you what, without our members, our channel would be seriously financially in trouble. So I can't thank you guys enough for supporting the channel so we can continue with the frequency and the content quality of products that we review here, being fully independent of any corporate overlords. So welcome in Jesse Trott. Thank you for becoming a member, as well as Timothy Chu, a new member as well. Nathan Wilson is a new member, as well as, I know there's one more that just joined us. Brian B became a supporter. And of course, all of our regular supporters and all of our regular viewers, welcome in. Hello to Gregory Howard, who's a supporter now for 12 months today. It's 1 year anniversary. He says, hello all, it's my 1 year anniversary. I've enjoyed it all. Keep on the path. I hope everyone is having a good weekend. Thank you, Greg. Michael Sayers says hello. Mark Baggett says hello. Thomas MacT says hello. He turned 71 on Saturday. Happy early birthday to our friend Thomas MacT. Marsman50 says hello. Of course, Marlena DG, our channel admin. I gotta have a better name than that. It's so much more than it sounds. Joins us in the chat as always. The One says, can you please have your old videos back on YouTube? That was not my decision. That's we're simply trying to keep the channel up. You might have found or noticed a lot of YouTube channels have shut down this year. Our good friends Tech Deals, where'd they go? They kind of ghosted us. All their live videos are gone. Their last content was 4 months ago. We don't want to follow in that same path. If you really appreciate the value of our videos, please consider helping to support us. YouTube has decided, well, the sponsors have decided. Here's the business side of it. And normally we keep this stuff for members only videos. This is kind of a behind the scenes sneak peek of what's happening as a creator. As a creator, typically what happens is the sponsors pay YouTube to play ads, and then a certain percentage of viewers will buy the product in the ad, which then the sponsor makes sales that hopefully generate more in profits than the cost of advertising. But lately, for one reason or another, viewers universally have stopped buying. So the sponsors say, we're not going to spend all this money for ads if it doesn't result in any sales. So then YouTube says, we'll lower the price, come back. Well, in many cases, there's just not a price low enough for free. So YouTube says, okay, creators, we're going to pay you less because we're not making anything from the sponsors. So a viewer, a couple of years ago, I could make, let's say, $100 from, let's say, 1,000 views, somewhere around there. Today, I make about $12 from 1,000 views. That's an 85% approximate price cut that I have no control over. Each video I make, like today's video, to give you an example, you have the price of this and the price of this. This was sent to us for free. This is the ZikeDrive. This is what we're going to be reviewing today. We don't often get products for free in exchange for an honest review. A lot of times companies want to control the review, and they don't like the idea that I'm live, unscripted, and honest. They want to preview what I'm about to say and then tell me if they approve of it. I don't play that. Then, of course, we have the fanxiang 2 terabyte Gen 4 drive, which I did pay for using membership money and super chat contributions that go back into the channel. You'll find that PC builds They're just no longer getting views. Look at the view numbers, not just on my channel, but everybody's. All the views have gone down. Sponsorships are few and far between now. And YouTube has decided that each viewer's view is no longer worth what it was worth a couple of years ago. As a result, people that do this full time as content creators can't pay their bills. They can't pay the rent. They have to just drop YouTube or just keep it as a hobby. If you like our video content and you value it, that you want it back, well, what we've done in order to stay in business is we've made our old content, anything older than 12 months, is in our archive, going all the way back to 2008. So, unfortunately, when you look at the archive, the views in the archive might get, I mean, just look at it. Don't take my word. Look at how many views a video from 12 months ago has on my channel, and then come back in a couple weeks and look at it again, and you might see 10 more views. So what's happening is it's crowding the channel. It's making the YouTube algorithm less useful to our channel. The YouTube algorithm is always changing. You'll never figure it out. And there's no point in trying to appease the algorithm, because even if you're able to, it'll change next week. So it's a big waste of time. Our core viewers are what we rely on, and we appreciate that you guys enjoy the content. We hope that if it has value to you, you'll help us to keep the channel up, because we cannot count on YouTube anymore, and we can't count on those ads. You're still getting the ads, but now you're going to get 6 ads instead of 2, because now it takes 6 to make, for YouTube to make essentially what they used to make off half of 1. So that for YouTube, the ad revenue is less. For the creators, we get less of a cut of what's less already of the, we're just trying to stay keeping what we're doing. All right. So no matter what happens in the future, I want you to understand at this point, our future is in the hands of our viewers. So these memberships are critical to us. If a membership is $10 a month and we get approximately just a little bit more than $10, $12 from 1,000 views, your one membership is worth 1,000 views on YouTube right now. So your membership is far more valuable to us. Your view, it used to be your view was what was getting us paid. It isn't anymore. If you want to know why, this is what's happening. I hope things turn around. I hope this isn't going to continue to get worse, but if it does, so long as we have members, we're going to keep marching forward. So the future of the channel is in your hands. All right, so I just wanted to take a minute to explain it. It's not our idea. We're just trying to keep the boat from sinking. And you can imagine just how appreciative we are of our members knowing this now. And this is universal across the entire platform. So if you're wondering why, that's why. Nick Poverman said this is on Amazon. We've not been able to find it on Amazon. You're saying it's on Amazon in the UK? Or you're in the UK, right, Nick? It's not on Amazon.com, unless it was put there in the last 24 hours, which I don't think it was. Our friend Buster, a member now for 28 months. Speaking of supporters, this channel would be in dire straits without help from our very generous supporters who give more than you would ever think anybody would ever give. Our friends like Buster, Peter Laycock, Oystein in Norway, Peter's in Scotland, Frankie B in New York, and how come I always forget one, Mara? Why does that happen? We have a relatively new, very generous supporter lately. I said Frankie B. Paul Gray in Australia, very generous contributor. Thank you so much. And I'm forgetting, there's one other. How can I do this? I feel so terrible. Oystein, Frankie B, Buster. I am so embarrassed right now. These are very generous individuals that deserve an individual call out. It's because of them that's eased the burden on not only us, but even on what we need from you guys to keep going. Peter says, good evening. It's 9 hours later in Scotland. It's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in Phoenix. I think it's 10 o'clock at night in Scotland right now. He says, good evening, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh, 47 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 8 degrees Celsius. You think we're ever going to get single-digit temperatures here, Mara? We don't live in the desert. And Peter contributes 10 pounds. Thank you, Buster, as always. Who am I forgetting? Buster, Oystein, Frankie B., Paul Gray. Wow. Wow. I must not have all my caffeine. It'll come to me. I hope they forgive me. Ken Schmidt with a $2 super chat says, aloha from Honolulu. Chat wouldn't work otherwise. It should. There's no reason. Chat's open to everybody. You should be able to chat without a super chat. Claudio says, hello from Portugal. Our friend Subaru Mike wants to take a trip to Portugal. He's considering moving there, but he's got to check it out first. Luke Greenia says hello from Vermont. Luke's a great friend of the channel, very supportive. We appreciate Luke very much. Luke says, I have Magic Dragons now, so my PC is good to go. Well, Mara and had sent Luke some little curio cabinet items that I guess he wanted to put inside of Project Zero. And we were worried shipping from Phoenix to Vermont that they would arrive undamaged, but it sounds like they arrived undamaged. Nick Poverman said, I made a mistake. The ZikeDrive is on Amazon in Germany. Well, we are worldwide, if you haven't picked that up by now. So we do try and keep that in mind. When you're watching, we're based here in the United States, and so I don't get out much. I don't know what's going on in other countries unless people in other countries tell me. Nick Garcia with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Nick. And Samuel Kowalski with a $5 super chat. You guys rock. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. As I mentioned, ZikeDrive has sent us the unit in exchange for a review. And there's no stipulation, there's no contract, even with regards to when I film it, how I film it, what I say, or how I say it, or how I test it. That's confidence, right? If a company sends you a product and says, you review it any way you want to, we're confident you're gonna like this. Let's face it, if they thought that wasn't gonna like it, then they'd want control over the review, and they may not send it otherwise. Well, never mind, we're not gonna send it to you unless we can, preview before you air to your audience your review. A lot of companies do that. I don't mention them, but if you're wondering why you don't see certain products here, it's either because the company doesn't respond to our request, the company's never sent us a request, the company wants control, or we simply use membership money and super chat contributions, and we go to Amazon in such a case. We buy the product ourselves if it's something we really want to review. And then when it's ours, we can do whatever we want with it. You don't even have to tell the company we did it, right? So there have been companies that won't send us products because they cannot control the review. There are companies that won't send us products because we don't have enough viewers for them. We're not good enough for them. So we don't let that get in our way. If we really want to review a product, we'll go buy it. If we don't have the finances to go buy it, we have to find other means of making content that doesn't cost so much. So with that being said, I guess I'll get this unboxed. I'm not complaining. This is just the challenges that you would not know that were happening unless I explained them to you. So just so you know, some people want to know why. Why are things the way they are today? I didn't wake up and just decide to change it. It changed and I'm responding. So, okay, let's get on with the review. Now yesterday we tested the Orico NVMe enclosure. It has a little fan. I had a little bit of struggle with the lid. I had a little bit of struggle with the toolless little mounting plug, and I dropped it on the ground and it fell into a box of parts because we're still moving into Studio C. It was the worst place for me to drop it. It took me an hour, but I finally found it, put it back in the box. I'm hoping the ZikeDrive will have an easier opening process and an easier toolless installation process. I think the speeds will be similar. I think the prices are relatively similar. I know the ZikeDrive will be sold on Amazon eventually. They're just not there yet. I think the Orico drive has been out longer, so you need to give them some time to get the forms filled out and everything to sell on Amazon. But in the meantime, we have a link to this product in our video notes, in our video description, if you want to click on the link to learn more. We're going to look at that together here in just a second, but first I want to show you what's in the box. We've got the instructions. We've got a USB C to C cable. There's no Type A adapter, so the Orico came with a Type A adapter. So points to the Orico on this one. Orico? Unless there's an adapter in here, I don't know. Everything's done live, unscripted, and unrehearsed, so we're experiencing this together for the first time. It's the best way, I think, to emulate what the end user does when they receive a product. Most of which don't read the instructions, most of which just rip the box open and get started and try and figure it out. So I'm emulating that typical customer behavior, but we're going to share it, so we're doing it together. Yeah, there's no, it sure would be nice if we had a separate USB Type C to Type A. This is supposed to be USB 4. Is it Thunderbolt 4? I think it's Thunderbolt 4 too. Backward compatible. Well, if it's backward compatible, where's my Type A? This is the little plastic hanger. That's your hang rattling around in the box. You know, when they hang it on a shelf at a retail store. Remember retail stores? Toolless installation, Type C, backward compatible, supports M.2 SSD with size 2280, 2260, 2242. That kind of makes them the same in that regard. Comes with a stowaway USB 4. Oh, there is another cable. Oh. But is it Type A? Let's find out. Carey, you're Type A. I know. Where was Computex this year? In Type A. Okay. It's got a clear plastic cover. I guess that stays on. And then underneath of it is the giant aluminum. The whole thing is a giant aluminum heatsink. I think it's aluminum. And right here, you push this forward, I guess. And you have a little teeny tiny short USB C to C cable. Again, no Type A. So you basically have two Type C to Type C cables. The only difference is length. I guess the idea is if you really want this to be portable and you don't want to forget the cable, because that'll ruin your whole day. Okay, that's cool. It obviously adds to the, I mean, if you look at the size of this, this is much, much wider because of the way that they're housing that cable. I don't think that's really helping heat dissipation since it's so far away from the drive, but what do I know? Oh, I see. So we would take this cable out and we would plug it in here. I don't think it matters which end. They're both the same. That's it. There doesn't appear to be any other ports, there's no power on or power off. It looks like the cable can go in from the bottom or in from the top. Either way, that little nub sticks out. Or not. No, it won't go in that way. Will not go in like that. It has to go in. That's kind of dumb. I wonder why. What difference does that make if you've got the slot there? What's that for? Why is that there? Okay, not a big deal. Just Trying to make sense of it. Let's pull up the Zike website and see how they promote this. Before I get too ahead of myself, let's see what they've got to say and how they promote it, and then we'll just verify our expectations are correct. Let me go over to our first link, which is Zike's website at ziketech.com. And this was originally, I believe it was a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo project. Let's go over there and take a look. Okay. USB 4, 40 gigs per second. So not Thunderbolt. Oh yeah, it is. No, it isn't. Faster than Thunderbolt 3, yes. But it's not a Thunderbolt enclosure. ZikeDrive USB 4, 40 gigabit per second. That's 4,000 megabytes per second in human talk. NVMe M.2 SSD enclosure. Z666 is the model number. It's got a lot of positive reviews. But when you're on a manufacturer's site, they can filter the reviews. You need to go to an independent seller like Amazon in order to really see unfiltered reviews in that sense. I mean, Amazon's still filtering them, but any manufacturer's website with reviews isn't going to post a bunch of negative reviews on their product. Not when they control the website. Why would they do that? So keep that in mind on any manufacturer's site. We just don't know how much filtering is being done. In any event, shows a retail recommended. Manufacturer suggested retail $199. They want $119 for it. Read speed of up to 3,800 gigabytes per second. Capital B is bytes, lowercase b is bits. 3.1 on the reads. What did we see yesterday? I'd have to look at yesterday's video. We were pretty close to that. We're dealing with the same interface, so I don't know if it will actually perform any different. We're going to use the same drive as we used yesterday, and we're going to keep everything as fair and square, including the same testing PC. And because we're doing them one day apart, we don't have to worry about any potential updates in the future affecting our performance for better or for worse. Transfer a 10 gig file in 3 seconds. Shipping time, you know, this is an Amazon, okay? Order it on the 12th. Your order will be ready the same or next day, and it'll be delivered within, it looks like, 2 weeks. So not exactly free 2-day shipping, but they're not charging for the shipping. 3811 megabytes per second. That's 3.8 gigs, yeah. 3199. You might as well round that to 3200. We'll see if we see those speeds. It's a true USB 4 enclosure. Notice there's no space between the letters USB and the number 4. Believe it or not, that makes a difference. When something says USB space 4, that's not a standard. And it could be a typo. But if it's actually meeting the USB conglomeration who makes these decisions, that is all 3 letters and 1 number with no space. That is how you comply with the requirement. Has the latest as media 2464 PD controller. A built-in cable slot, comes with a USB 4 cable, comes with 2 of them as we've already seen. Supports 4 SSD specs. Oh, it's referring to the form factor size, 2280, 2260. This is the length. 80 millimeters long is the one we use most often. 60 millimeters long, 42 millimeters long, 30 millimeters. These smaller drives are typically lower performing and can often be more expensive, and they're designed for tablets and smartphones and things where that matters. You definitely want the 2280 for the best value for the money, the best performance. ZikeDrive is made of aircraft-grade aluminum alloy. It's a wide heatsink that can dissipate heat for the SSD. Even when the ZikeDrive is transferring a large amount of data at high speed, it can maintain a low external temperature. The excellent heat dissipation performance not only protects your device, but also the included protective case can protect your hands from being burned. Well, that's, I've never had my hands burned. I've had them that they're a little uncomfortable, right, when they get so hot, but not so much that it would burn. Not quite sure what their precedent for that is. You know, It'd be nice if you could name a product that actually could burn your hands. I'm not aware of one. ZikeDrive works with any USB-C device, such as a Mac, a PC, an iPad, a PlayStation 5. Oh, PlayStation 5. Xbox and more. It connects well to devices using Thunderbolt. Oh, it does use Thunderbolt. USB 2, USB 3.2, Gen 1 or Gen 2 complies with the USB 4 standard. See here, no space between USB and 4. Supports PCIe Gen 4 by 4. And it's backwards compatible if you want to go slower. Okay, the ZikeDrive versus other SSD enclosures. I'm not seeing any pictures loading here. Let me refresh. There it goes. Okay. Interface. Oh, they're not naming anybody. Okay. Probably don't want a lawsuit. They're showing they're faster. 3401, they're showing as their fastest current USB 4 SSD competitor, and they're a little bit faster, 3811. Specifications. I don't know where they're getting 16 terabytes. No such thing exists. Why? This might be a typographical error. You notice the numbers always double. 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. What happened to 8? 8 actually exists. You can buy an 8 terabyte NVMe. There is no such thing as a 16 yet. As we film this, there's not one you can buy. But maybe in the future, well, certainly in the future. You need Windows 10 or 11 or above. I guess Windows 12, 13, 14. They must have a crystal ball. Mac OS 10, Yosemite, El Capitan, Sierra, Monterey or above, or Linux kernel 5.6 or above. There's your dimensions, width, height, and depth. Weight, 245 grams. I'm assuming that's empty. And aluminum alloy with ABS plastic. Fair enough. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. FAQs. Remember, this was, I believe it was a crowd-funded project initially, so it was like, hey, when are the first batch of these shipping? I try to avoid, I don't, for the most part, I don't think I ever have promoted a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, because a lot of them fall through and never return the backers' money and never come out with a product. So I'm like, well, let's just see if they actually get enough funding and they actually follow through with the product. Then we'll take a look at it. And so this is an example of that. We could have reviewed this months ago, but I don't want you guys investing in something that turns out to be vaporware. In this case, turns out it's not vaporware. We have them, and they are available for sale to the general public, not just backers. But because of the backers, they've made this product possible. We're seeing more and more big companies using the general public to finance their latest products. But even the big companies don't follow through all the time. Some companies come and go. Remember the Zulu mini PC? Where did it ever go? What happened to it? Maybe they're still around. I don't know. They've been awfully quiet. And then when it comes to Geekom with their new Mega Mini, I believe that was backed through an Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign. It's a pretty unusual trend we're seeing from large companies, rather than relying on traditional investors, are going to the general public on Kickstarter and Indiegogo to find the funding. And if the funding never comes through, then the project won't happen. So it's kind of risky. In the meantime, I know there are guarantees and such for getting your money back through the actual funding website, but I don't do it, so I don't know. Anyway, let me bring this up to the camera. We'll get you a close look. I'm squirreling, slightly distracted. Let's come over here. We'll bring this up to the camera. See, it's got that clear plastic surrounding the metal that does not come off. And I guess that keeps your hands from touching the hot, what could potentially be hot metal. This is that little knobby deal. You pull on it, slide the cable out. But you notice there's a slot, there's the same slot on the other side. But if you try and put this into the other slot, why won't it go in? Oh, Wait a minute, it does. I just was, okay. It's new and everything's really tight. It does go in. No, wait a minute. Once it gets to the knob, no, it's, why is that there? If you can't, why couldn't you put this in? What would prevent, why? What if I wanted in? I don't understand why they did that. Why have this here if you're not going to use it? And why wouldn't you? What reason would there be to not put this in the other way? Somebody explain that to me. It annoys me. Look at the difference on the other side. That just slides right in. Super easy. So I don't understand. Now, on the back, that is our USB Type-C connector. And as far as putting the drive in, you'll notice a seam with a little lip here. Where the other drive, yesterday, we had to slide it a little bit. I think this one, it's my understanding, you just pull up on it. Oh. Yeah, just pull up on it. We've got thermal tape already applied, so all you have to do is remove that protective cover. And we have a toolless little plastic piece here, which I guess these little rubber plugs come out and you move that for the shorter drives, the 2260, 2242, etc. We're all the way in the back for a 2280, and you really only want to use a 2280. I think support for the smaller drives is not going to be adopted by most owners of this device. Very small percentage of owners of this device would need to use the smaller size, but whatever. It's already pre-installed right here, this little retention plastic plug piece here. So they've pre-installed the plug, which the Orico drive did not do, and they've pre-applied the thermal tape, which the Orico drive didn't do. These are just differences. Whether or not it's a pro or a con, I can't say. I'll leave that to you to decide. It's not like it's that much work one way or the other. But, you know, I did drop that little plastic plug. This one looks like I'd be less likely to drop it if you really just have to turn it. Remember, I had a struggle getting the NVMe drive into yesterday's enclosure. In theory, this one should be much more like putting it into a regular motherboard where you seat the drive and rotate the thing and you're done. Let's find out. This is the same S880 fanxiang 2 terabyte Gen 4 NVMe SSD that we used yesterday. Did you get all that? It's already been formatted because we did that on yesterday's video. I just simply took it out of the enclosure and put it back in its package. A link to this drive is in the video description if you want to buy one. They use the same controller and NAND chips as the big name brands, but for less money. So we've probably installed at least 24 of these, and we've never had a bad one. If I'm not jinxing myself, they've been very reliable, and they're very fast. They're about 7,300 megabytes per second. So that's a high-end Gen 4 drive at a medium-end Gen 4 price. Okay. Take the drive out. Get the packaging out of there. Right over there should be fine. You know what? This can go with it. Small desk. I need to clear space. Documentation. Fly, be free. Let's try this. I want to do this again. I am going to push my luck and hope what happened yesterday doesn't happen today. I'm going to bring this up to the camera. I have a box of cables right below where I'm about to do this. And if that little plug falls into that box of cables, it's going to suck for me to try and find it. And we don't have a spare one. Orico gave us a spare one. Of course, now we know why. So let's try this. I'm doing it backwards. If I'm showing it to you, I can't see it. So, I mean, bear with me. Let me try and figure this out. I would struggle just to have it in front of me looking at it, quite frankly. On any enclosure, I can't see through it, okay? So that is how we begin. And then this little plug spins. It spins. There. I didn't have to take the plug out. You see the shape of the plug? It's like a letter T shape. That's how it should work. Then we just turn it. We didn't have to take it out. See how much easier that is? If you can't make it that easier, just give me the darn screw, right? Because saying it's toolless, the way Orico implemented it, I think a screw would have been easier. That's it. Our installation is done. We just have to put the cover on. But before we put the cover on, we need to remember to take that protective plastic covering off our thermal tape here. And look, it has a pull tab. Look how much easier that was to remove. Is that a deal breaker if it doesn't have a pull? No, it's just nice. I appreciate the consideration from the manufacturer. Now, how does this go back on? Does it go on this way or does it go on this way? Does it go on that way? Does it go on this way? Well, let me show you. And again, I think they could have been a little more helpful with an arrow or something, 2 dots. Whatever happened to the little alignment dots? Give me a dot on the side or on the end and a dot on the end, and I align the dots. Has nobody ever tuned up a car in 1984? You get the chalk and you mark the harmonic balancer and you mark the timing chain mark and you hit it with the strobe light and you twist your distributor until the lines line up together while it's rotating. Or a record player, you want to make sure it's spinning at 45 RPM. Am I showing my age? Do I need to explain what a distributor cap is and what a record player is? Apparently, we've all forgotten the basic alignment rules. Even as technology is advanced, we still need to align it. So what I'm looking at on the bottom of this is there is what do you want to call that? Protrusion on one end, but it's not clear to me what that protrusion's for. Other than, well, now that I'm looking a little closer, I do see a dimple in the same shape. So I guess that protrusion, okay, if I took a minute to look at it, but I really wish I didn't have to figure it out. I wish it was just give me a little white dot. You know what? I can grab a black Sharpie marker and put a black dot here and a black dot right. No, black won't show up on black. I'd have to put a silver dot on the black and a black dot on the silver, and then that would remind me which way this goes on. But you just set it on top, I guess. You don't slide it in. You just push it down. Maybe. Maybe. Maybe not. Not going in. What if I got it backwards? Got to put it in the right orientation. Sure would have helped if I had some alignment dots. But that snapped. No, it didn't. Did not snap in. Hold on. Still something not right. What am I doing wrong? Maybe you put this end in first, then close. That seems to have done it. Okay, we're ready for testing. So we can test either with the shorter cable or the longer cable. It should not make a difference in our speed test. And we're going to use the Minis Forum MS01 mini PC because it's one of the few PCs I have that have USB 4. If you guys at home don't have USB 4 or you don't have a Gen 4 NVMe drive, you're not going to see the numbers I'm going to show you. You will get slower numbers and it will work. You can use a Gen 3 drive. You can use USB 3. But then why would you spend all the money for a faster enclosure if you don't receive any benefit from it? You can buy a cheaper enclosure if you want to use a cheaper drive into a cheaper USB port, into a cheaper computer. If you think you're future-proofing, I don't really think you are, because when and if you ever upgrade, USB 5 might be out. This may not seem to have anything you buy that you can't utilize today will be cheaper tomorrow or potentially obsolete. This technology moves very quickly. So just set your expectations accordingly. Do what you're going to do. Which side is the top? I guess this side says Zike, so I guess it goes this way versus, I guess it doesn't matter. It's the same. I don't know if we have any LEDs on this that tell us if it's active or reading or writing. Let's find out. I'm going to start by turning this machine on. This is the same machine we used yesterday. There's been no alterations to it. And we're going to go over here to our capture card and let's bring up, I hope the desktop, is it going to come up? A black screen is, wasn't, oh, there it goes. Nothing happens fast enough in my world. And while we're waiting, let me take a look at the chat room. See if you guys have any questions or comments here. Brian B says new member, not subscriber. Did I say subscriber, Brian? Sometimes what my brain thinks and what my mouth says don't line up. Apologize if I vocalized my typo, my mental typo. Nick Poverman. Oh, I'm confusing Nick Poverman with Nick Caffrey. Nick Caffrey's in Europe and Nick Poverman's in the USA, and he had said that he found the ZikeDrive on Amazon and then said, no, my search result was actually Amazon in Germany. Again, I'm very confused today. Bear with me. You know, we all have days like today. Apparently today's mine. Let's keep scrolling through, see what else you guys are saying. Frank Jimmy says Orico Enclosure reached speeds of 3818 and 3087 yesterday. Those were the numbers we got. Frank, thank you so much for looking back at the video and letting me know. So we have a point to continue from and compare to. Matt says, so that's for backing up files? It's whatever you want it to be for. I mean, backing up files, I don't know why the speed of that would be important to you. Just set it to back up at night and go to bed. Who cares? But if speed is important to you for whatever reason, you can know that this is available. If you don't need this level of speed, you can save money and not buy something. If you don't need a Ferrari, you can save money and buy a Chevy, okay? So for those who can afford it and can justify it, or maybe they don't justify it, maybe they just want it and they've got the money to spend, even though they don't need it, well, that's acceptable. It's not my default, right? My default is there's got to be a reason for buying this other than I want it. That's just how I was raised. But sometimes I have to remind myself, sometimes people just want stuff for no other reason than it's emotional. I wouldn't recommend to my professional business clients they buy anything that is below their needs or over their needs because of potential maintenance costs, and the initial cost to acquire it is much higher. Unless it's something we foresee we're going to need soon, so we're not repurchasing again anytime soon. So my attitude comes from a business perspective where I'm trying to help my clients not underbuy and not overbuy to meet their needs today and in the foreseeable future, and we get it right the first time. But when we're dealing with the general public, there's a segment of the general public that says, I have no reasonable, practical reason for owning this. I just want it. And you know what? That's valid. It's absolutely valid because I'm not selling it to you, right? I'm not the one taking on accountability and responsibility. My job is to help customers solve problems. And if it's an emotional thing that you want, it's not solving any problem, at least not one I can help you with. So acknowledgement for that, it's valid. I'm not saying it's not valid, just not my default way of thinking. So let me go full screen over here on our desktop and no, you know what? Hold on. Let me grab camera one and let's go into the corner. Then you'll get both, and you'll see what I'm about to do here. So we're going to grab this cable's longer. This cable's more convenient when traveling, but it's not very flexible. So I'm kind of resistant to use this cable. This is like a better than nothing cable. This I would much prefer, just because we have a little more length on it. If you have a desktop PC and your USB port is on the front and it's going to hang down, you definitely are going to want the longer cable. Otherwise, this thing's going to be hanging with all of its weight onto your USB port. Not good. Because we're using a mini PC, it's kind of like the Dachshund of of computers. It's already low to the ground, so we don't have to worry too much other than just getting in the way of other cables plugged in the back with that short cable. Both ends of this cable are the same. We're just going to plug one end here and one of our Type-C slots. They're both USB 4 back here. Do we get a light or anything? Yeah, we have a blue blinking light. Let's see if I can make this bigger here. See the blue light? So just like the Orico drive, just one light apparently. But that's good. That tells us when it's blinking, it's doing something, right? Whatever it's doing something. You never want to unplug it when the light's blinking. That's true of most flash drives or any kind of USB storage. Now, let's go back to putting me in a corner. And let me grab this keyboard and mouse. They're plugged in over on the mini PC. And I need to go full screen on my side so I can see it the way you guys at home see it. Everything's super tiny for me on the creator side. Now, I'm going to bring Crystal Disk Mark Portable up. And, oh, I better verify the drive is detected first. Orico. Oh, I named the... Oh, that was a mistake, Carey. Let's rename the SSD NVMe drive. Silly me. Silly me. Okay, I should not have named it, but let me keep my story straight here, and let me go to Properties, and let's change this to wrong keyboard. Turn the keyboard on first. Zike. Remember, we're labeling the NVMe drive. So I'm calling the NVMe drive itself Orico or Zike drive because that's what I see when I click on the this PC or that was the logic behind it, and they just confused myself because I moved it. All right, that's how we got there. The drive appears, it's all there. Let's run diskmark 64, and that was drive F, correct? Yeah, drive F is the 2 terabyte drive. There's no other 2 terabyte drives in this mini PC, so that has to be it. And we're gonna hit the all button, and let me just verify. Yeah, we're running. Dwayne Blackwelder renews membership, now a member for 22 months. He says, hello, great content. Thank you, Carey. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you for renewing membership and for being a part of our community here. All right, Gatorade break. Brian says, with regards to member or subscriber, it wasn't me who missaid it, it was him. All right, it's all good. It happens to us all. Well, those numbers are not good. Something ain't right. When we do live and unscripted videos, you can't make stuff like this up. We're missing something. We should not see performance this low with this NVMe drive and this enclosure. It's the same as we did yesterday, and we saw twice that. It's like it's running at half speed. Why would it run at half speed? I'm going to stop the test. There's no reason to continue it at half speed. I'm going to reverse the cable. Let's do that. And the reason I'm reversing it, it's not the direction of the cable that matters. It's if I seated it well enough. I have this really bad habit of not pushing the cables in far enough. HDMI cables. If you've been watching this channel, power cables, I'm too gentle sometimes, said no one ever. But with delicate electronics that aren't so delicate, I probably need to be a little more forceful. So let's see if reseating those cables helped. And by reversing it, it forces me, don't just push the cable in. That's not good enough. You need to take the cable out, put it back in again. So to make sure, to force us to do that, we just turn the cable around. But let's do this again. If I got to use the right mouse. Let's see. I hope that's all it was. Come on. No. Okay, something's wrong. This is not normal. So I'm going to try the other USB cable. Let's take that out. Let's grab this one. Let's plug it in here. And we'll plug it in. We'll use the other USB 4 slot. They should both be the same. And there it goes. It loads. And let's run the test again. Are we still running at half speed? Here we go. Read 1 of 5. We're going to start seeing the best of 5 here in this sequential. No, we are consistently running at essentially a by 2 speed instead of a by 4 speed. We didn't have that problem yesterday, so we know it's not the drive. It either means I did not seat the drive well into the M.2 slot, or I need to reboot the computer perhaps. I don't know. Unexpected result. I know something's wrong. I know this drive does better. Let's take a look. The NVMe looks well seated into the socket, but just to be thorough, I'm going to take it out, put it back in again. Only this time, instead of doing it for you, I'm going to look right at it and make sure that I'm putting it in straight, that it's seated properly. And by the way, it's a lot easier when it's facing you. That's a problem none of you should have unless you're making videos. All right, put that back. I mean, there's nothing to configure on this. It's all plug and play. Plug and pray. Plug it back in. Let's reboot the Minis Forum MSO1. We're going to try this one more time. If it maintains that speed, there's really nothing more for us to diagnose. It means either the enclosure's bad, there's no way we got 2 bad cables, there's no way the USB ports don't work properly. In fact, just to verify, we could pull the Orico drive back out, swap the NVMe, and try it one more time. But this is well below. Other reviewers have tested this, and they're seeing similar numbers that we saw on the Orico. So we're nowhere near that. Something's not right. And I don't know why. Guess I'll put the cable back. Oh, well, things got interesting. When things go wrong, that's when the video gets good, but not necessarily for the manufacturer of the product. But it is what it is. It's all real. Not scripted. This isn't choreographed. It's, I don't know. Not supposed to be this hard. Okay, let's plug the drive back in. Right back here. Okay, drive F. We're going to go back to Crystal Disk Mark. Disk Mark 64, yes. Drive F, yes. Hit all. Close that window back there. Let's see what it does. This is an unexpected turn of events. It's all brand new hardware, brand new drive, brand new enclosure. First time unboxing. We're still at half speed. We are absolutely at half speed. So basically, We don't need to run this test any further. We know for some reason we're only operating at ×2 speeds. I don't know why. However, here's what I'm going to do. We are going to go full screen on camera 1 because I want you to watch this, and I want the manufacturer of the ZikeDrive to watch this. And what we're going to do is we're going to unplug it, and very simply, we're going to take the test drive, our fanxiang S880, out of the ZikeDrive. We're going to put it back in the Orico, leaving the computer on, nothing else is changing, and see if we're going to get 2000 out of the same drive. Or is it only happening on the Zike? Maybe something changed with the NVMe drive between yesterday and today, and I damaged it somehow, where it only runs at 2x speed, which that would be a talent if I could actually do that. But you know what? I've surprised myself before, so I want to make sure I'm not the one doing something wrong here. Let's set the Zike aside. Let's get that Orico back out. This was what we did yesterday. And then it slides that way. I left a little plug in. Now on this one, I now know. You got to take the plug out, put the drive in. The groove closest to the top of the plug goes into the NVMe drive first, and it's got to be vertical to align with the hole in the circuit board below, and then you push it down and then turn it. It makes it real easy to drop that plug. I have the thermal tape. I left it on the included heatsink. I'll put that back on just like I did yesterday. That's it. Put the cover back on. Right? Nothing up my sleeve. We use the Orico's included USB-C that has a USB type A adapter included that ZikeDrive does not give us. So if you have USB type A, you're on your own. Okay, we're going to plug that in. And USB type A would be slower, so we want to use type C. I only have 2 type C ports back here. I've already tried them both on the ZikeDrive. Our blue light has come on here. And of course now the drive says ZikeDrive. It's back to Orico. Don't let that confuse you. All right, that's just what I named the NVMe drive, and I'm realizing now that's bit me twice, right in a row. All right, let's go back over. Let's go back over to camera 2, or our input here, and let me go full screen so I can see it the way you guys do. Here's what I think I need to do, is I just need to go to the My Computer piece, this PC, I keep calling it the old school name, and let's just rename it one more time to nothing, and then I'll stop confusing myself. Or at least partially. I mean, I'm always going to confuse myself. Okay, so now we're just back to no name. Let's run Crystal Disk Mark one more time, right now, where everything is still unchanged, and see if we only see half speed. Are we going to get 1900? Are we going to get 3800? Place your bets. What do you think? Is it the drive? Is it the enclosure? Oh, there it is, 3800. That's twice the speed of the ZikeDrive. So, what's happening? Any ideas in the chat room why we would see such an extreme difference between the 2 drives? We've tried both cables that came with the ZikeDrive. It would be unlikely that both cables would be bad in the same way. It's the same NVMe drive in the same USB port on the same computer, performing at 50% speed on one and 100% speed on the other. I'd like to hear your hypotheses. Hypotheses? David Collins suggests it might be the USB negotiation speed. But why, if they're both USB 4, why is one negotiating USB 4 and the other one isn't? What would explain that? USB 4 is a standard. It's clearly a standard that works, right? The PC seems to be accepting it. The Enclosure from Orico seems to accept it. The NVMe drive seems to be fine. So, other hypotheses? Samuel wants me to try the Orico cable. But here's the thing. The Zike drive, we've tried 2 different cables from the Zike drive. There's no way those 2 cables are going to be operating in a negative impact identically. If we only had 1 cable, I'd agree with you. I don't believe that the Orico USB cable will make a difference. Because if that's true, that means that the Zike drive performance would be the same for all reviewers. And as far as I know, I'm the only reviewer that's ever had a negative number come up, or a half-speed number come up. So we'll go ahead and let that test finish, let it run, and in the meantime, let me see what else you guys have to say. Brian B says, I should never assume and always try it. That's true. That's true. Logically, it doesn't make any sense, but if it made sense, we wouldn't have a problem. I've said that myself many times. Follow my own advice. Do as I say, not as I do. Let's let the test finish first. David Graham says maybe they shipped the wrong cables. I don't think they make anything else. I don't think the company that makes the Zike drive has other products, do they? I mean, what else would this cable work on? It's specifically designed for this enclosure. This is the only product, to the best of my knowledge, that would utilize that cable that any manufacturer, let alone Zike drive, makes. It's a very unique cable solution for a very unique enclosure for a very unique product. It's kind of a custom-made part, so how could they give us the wrong one? That doesn't make any sense. Now this one, this is a pretty universal Type-C to Type-C, but not all Type-Cs are equal. Some are just phone chargers. Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat. Looks like I missed a few earlier ones. Let me grab on those real quick and acknowledge and say thank you to Dennis Kine, who renews membership. Doesn't say for how many months. Welcome, Dennis, back to membership. It looks like maybe he left and came back. Peter VZ with a €1 super chat contribution. Charlie Purdy with a $20 super chat. Very generous. Thank you, Charlie. Let's see. Let me scroll up and see what some ideas are you guys have that I didn't see earlier. Is it running hot? No. Same port. There's only 2 ports. We used them both today just to see. There's a left port and a right port. They both performed exactly the same. Make sure you're using a USB 3 on the Mini. Yeah, I can't get it wrong. Well, it's USB 4, not 3, but I understand what you meant. What about the cable attachment? We tried that already. So maybe some of these comments came before I actually did it. Zenkudo says, I'm pretty sure those enclosures only work with specific brands of NVMe drives. I've never known. If the NVMe drive supports the standard communication protocols, which clearly the Beijing has done, I've used those in many motherboards and never had a problem. Never, ever. It performs no differently than name brand drives. This is the first time we've seen a difference. Do we really want to think it's the drive that's not supporting? That doesn't make any sense. They're using the same controllers, the same NAND chips. It's only the brand name really that's changed. Let's see. Try reformatting the NVMe drive. What does that have to do with speed? read those already. Wouldn't be the first time the enclosures included bad cables. 2 bad cables that fail in exactly the same way. You go buy a lottery ticket. Come on. USB negotiation speed. But why? Might just be the board itself. Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. It could be a firmware update. Could be something in shipping caused some damage on the internals of the circuit board, even though there's no moving parts. It could have been drop kicked to the front door for all I know. Carey, try to use ZikeDrive firmware update tool for Windows from website. Oh, is there a new firmware? Use the ZikeDrive cable on the Orico. I like that suggestion, Brian, because then I don't have to take the drive back out and move it, because that might take, 2 minutes of effort. Switching the cable's much less effort, and that should equate to doing the same the other way around. So great idea. Shame on me for not thinking of that. See? That's why we need you guys. All right, let me jump back over. Yeah, those are good numbers. Those are really good numbers. Bear with. Let's go and close this. And I'm going to be nice and eject it first. Now I can unplug it. So before I do, we'll go back to camera 1 so you can watch what I'm about to do. So we're going to take Orico's cable. We'll keep it with Orico's box. I don't want to... Actually, they're not difficult to confuse. Orico has the Type A adapter. Zike does not. We're going to grab Zike's cable. We're going to plug it into the Orico drive. In theory, these cables are identical. And we're going to plug it back into our mini PC. And then we're going to go back to our desktop here. Back to full screen for me. Full screen. And we're going to go back to Crystal Disk Mark. Disk Mark 64. Yes. And here we go. It's going to be half speed, or is it going to be full speed? I think it's going to be full speed. I don't think it's the cable. And I know it's not the drive. And that only leaves the enclosure. No, it's half speed. Holy cow, see, this is why you don't assume. Never assume. Would you look at that? Wow, I would have obviously not really considered this seriously. Okay, so let's try one other thing. Let's go back to camera 1. Let's unplug this cable. I am floored. Let me just set that over there. Let's grab this. Where did I? Wrong enclosure. Let's grab the shorter cable. We've already done this. How is it possible they both are failing in the same way? What's happening here? Let's plug it in. You can't plug them in upside down. USB Type-C goes in either way. Wow. See? Why would I humiliate myself if I could edit these videos? This is why we go live, because I make the same mistakes you make. The only difference is, as a professional, I don't get to walk away from it. I have to solve it, or I'll lose that customer potentially forever, and then I won't have business if I don't see things through. So even if it's embarrassing or humiliating, the good news is those are lessons that will stick with me because I was embarrassed. If I solved it real easy, then the lesson probably doesn't really stay with me because I'm like, oh, there's nothing to learn. I already knew it. Even if it was a guess, and then it happens, a similar situation happens 2 months later. What did I do to fix that? And I'm right back to square one. So growing and evolving involves sometimes falling down. Thank you for encouraging me to test that. I honestly thought this was going to be a waste of my time. Okay, let's go back with the new cable and let's run this test again. Gosh, that's really weird. Very, very weird. Same test results. Wow. Do you believe that, Mara? I'm shocked. She doesn't believe it either. Okay, so I guess there's one final test to do, and that is to, let's eject this safely again. Not that I need to, just I feel like I need to be cautious now, whereas I wasn't before, even though that has nothing to do with me. Okay. Weird. Super weird. If the problem made sense, it wouldn't have been a problem. I would have solved it immediately. That's why you never, this is a prime example. I'm guilty of it. I am absolutely guilty of doing the exact same things I will chastise you to do. So I guess I need to be harder on myself. Okay, so I did not see this coming. But you know what? As long as I have an answer, I'm good. If we didn't have an answer to this, I'd be more frustrated. I'd rather be embarrassed than frustrated. Okay. It's important that I'm honest, even if it's not in my best interest to my ego. But, you know, it'll recover, I'm pretty sure. All right, let's get that back off of there. We'll keep that together. We'll put that back on. I'm still struggling with that lid. I'm going to go back in here. Back in here. Yep. Man, I hope you guys have tiny fingers, because yeah, this is raccoon fingers, like Salem Texperts in his tiny raccoon hands. The greatest technician that ever lived. Oh, I probably have to pay him a royalty now. Maybe I should send this to him. Okay, this was easy before. Why am I having a problem? What am I doing different? I'm not liking these toolless designs, if I'm honest. It wasn't hard with this. It was easier. Just give me the screw. I mean, it's just, this is ridiculous. I was really thinking, honestly, that the ZikeDrive was going to outperform and outshine. I could not have been more wrong. So don't believe everything you read on the internet, folks, or see. Okay, this time we're going to use Orico's USB cable. Okay, and we're going to put it right back. Everything's the same. We're not even rebooting. We're not reformatting. We're not rebooting. All we're doing is switching the cable. Crazy world. These are all supposed to meet the same USB 4 standard. It is not like USB 4 is new and we're dealing with a evolving standard. This standard is set in stone. So all USB 4 compatible USB 4 cables that meet the USB 4 standard should operate exactly the same. That's what the standard is for. Here we go. Okay, so the Zike drive, we're right back to the same test. The only thing that's changed is the cable. Will we still get half speed? Ha! Wow. Okay, this is slightly faster than the Orico, but I mean, it's nothing. It's so negligible as to not make really any difference whatsoever in any practical use scenario. We'll wait and see what the write speed is, but it's probably going to be to the limit of the, well, let me rephrase. The read speed can only go as high as 4,000, and that's assuming you had no overhead, no parity and error checking. So if it's a 40 gig per second port, that means the fastest it can do is 4,000, period. So it's likely doing, if not 4,000, very close to it with all the parity and overhead. Now the write speed, on the other hand, writes are generally going to be slower than reads on solid state drives. And maybe, you know, there's room for growth there if the write speed is being limited by the computer and not the NVMe drive itself. But given it's likely the NVMe drive, we should see similar numbers between Zike and Orico. I don't, let's just see. We were at what, 3,000, I think, on the Orico yesterday on the sequential writes. The reason I look at sequential writes, just as a reminder, is that's the best the drive can do. It will never do better than that. All right, you can look at your 4K writes and I/O and stuff like that, and that varies. What I want to know is, what is the best under every optimal condition? What's the best it will do, period? And that's what we're looking at on those top two numbers, which we're dealing with the read speed on the left side, the write speed on the right side. And that first number at the top left and the first number at the top right, those are our sequential. This is as fast as it's going to go with this drive and this enclosure and this computer. That is, it's not going to go any faster than this. That's what I want to know. Everything else is variable. Yeah, it's basically the same. So that means between the drive itself and the USB 4 40 gig per second transfer, we are saturating the bus on the read, and we're saturating the NVMe drive on the write. But both drives are imperceptibly close enough to the same as for me to not say one is better than the other, except for the cables, which isn't what we were buying. I wasn't buying cables. I was buying a drive. In order to use the drive, they include the cables. So we're going to have to reach out to our contact over at ZikeDrive, have them look at the video, and advise us on how to continue. Whether that means replacing the cables, if they need to replicate it on their side. If there's a firmware update, I can't see how it relates to the cable. That doesn't seem to be a controller issue or a drive compatibility issue. We might need to send them back the cables. Why would we get two bad cables? I don't get it. But we know what it is, we just don't know why. And how were other review sites able to test this and say that this is faster than this? We didn't see their testing. Did they know what they were doing? Did they get something different than we got? I don't know. I can only speak from my experience, in that we had this experience together. It's your experience too. So thank you for the help, chat room. I very much appreciate that. I do. You twisted my arm a little bit, and I'm just doing it to humor you. And there you go. I don't know everything, but don't let that ruin, don't tell that to other people. Frankie B with a $5 super chat. Right on. Thanks, Frankie. Use the so-called bad cables on another PC. All USB 4 standard is the same. It's all the same. So the question is, do I have another PC with USB 4? You know, we're in the middle of a studio move. We're far from, we're going to be 6 to 8 weeks before we have Studio C set up. I don't know where another PC with USB 4 is. It's in here somewhere. It's just not that easy. At Studio B, it would have been easier because everything was organized. So unfortunately, the ease with which we have to make these last minute changes and, you know, grab a power supply or grab a spare part, we will get there, but it's too early. We're still a blank wall and a more or less empty space. The fact that we're able to broadcast at all is pushing it. But we will get there. Brian says, try the MSA1 with their cables, AMD versus Intel. Again, I don't know where it is. It's here somewhere. I have no idea where. It's just not that. I can't. I'll have to walk off camera for a half an hour, locate it, get it out of the box, hook it all back up. No, that all needs to be prepped prior to showtime. When we get the studio, once again, when the studio is organized, we'll be able to get back to that. But yeah, you need, I can't emphasize enough, you have no idea what this place looks like on the other side of the camera. You'd be surprised I can even get back behind the desk. That requires some human origami. And you might think there's a blank wall behind me, but there's actually 6 PCs behind me. And if I take a step back this far, I literally walk into a PC on the floor because I don't have anywhere to put them yet. So they're all just stacked around the edges of the walls. You got to do what you got to do. We're under a timeline, a time constraint to get out of Studio B. Ready or not, we had to be out. So that's what I had to do. So it's what you can't see. Paul Howe said there is a firmware update on their page, but how do you know we need the how do you know that firmware update's not already on here? And what does that have to do with the cable? In other words, why did the cable perform the same? Is there a firmware update on the Orico drive that those cables from ZikeDrive that aren't working will suddenly make? It's clearly the cable. That's all I'm trying to say. There's nothing a firmware update will do to fix a cable. Paul says, just to see if it's easy to update. Why are you assuming we need an update? That's what I don't understand. Why do you think we don't? We just got this drive from ZikeDrive. Why wouldn't it have the latest firmware? And why would we potentially brick it over a cable? Like, if you're going to do the firmware on a motherboard, that's different. When you're doing a firmware on an enclosure, no company does them the same. So first we'd have to figure out what firmware version we have before we determine if there's a newer firmware version available. And then we'd have to find out what difference do the two firmware versions make to make it worth taking that risk to damage, potentially brick the drive. So I appreciate the thought, hey, let's see if it's easy, but that's not something I want to encourage. I want to encourage things on this channel I think the average user can do. Firmware updating an external drive should never be necessary unless you are directed to do so by their tech support, who will then take responsibility for it. In my opinion, I would never advise a viewer to update a firmware update on an external drive unless there is a known issue, like SanDisk had a firmware update for their certain SSDs with certain serial numbers where the SSDs would fail prematurely, and they're covered under warranty. But if you wanted to apply the firmware update, if your serial number fell within that range, SanDisk has a place for you to enter your serial number, then to determine if that update applies to you, and then walks you through. And it's all on SanDisk, right? It's their responsibility now. And it was their responsibility before. Like if the drive did prematurely fail, that would be on SanDisk to replace it anyway. So in no circumstance is it required for a customer, unless directly directed by tech support of the manufacturer. I do not advise average users do that. Motherboards, different story. Okay, just so we're clear, everything's not the same. There's different rules that apply to different things, and there's reasons for those, and it involves likelihood of success, risk, potential inconvenience, and the reason why. It's on a motherboard BIOS, it's pretty much the same across all motherboard manufacturers, and it has been for many, many years. It's a pretty standard procedure. There is no standard procedure here. So, yeah, I don't even know that we need it. In theory, we just got this. It should already have the latest firmware on it. Just FYI. I think our focus needs to be on the problem. Firmware is not a problem. You're solving something that doesn't need to be solved. The problem is the cables. Something is wrong with the cables. That's where we need to stay focused. As a working technician, if a customer hires me to fix the cooling fan in their computer, and while I'm in there, I'm like, oh, I'm going to clean up these cables. You don't need these. And I disconnect the cables they didn't ask me to do. And now as a result, I didn't realize I've disconnected something they actually need. And then they call me back and say, hey, ever since you fixed my computer, this thing doesn't work. And it came to find out it was because I did something I wasn't asked to do. And now I got to go back and service it at my cost. And it makes me look bad. It inconveniences my customer. Understand my reluctance is about accountability. So. Richard Pullman here said, in some slot machines I worked on, I had to update the firmware, but you were directed to do that, correct? Okay, let's see what else we got. Now, I will tell you, when we reach out to Zike, if Zike says, hey, you should update the firmware or check it, we will, but only if we're directed to, because we're not having a firmware problem. If I haven't been clear enough. All right. And Mara says she has reached out to them. All right, well, we'll share with you their response and how we proceed as soon as we know. You guys will be next to know. We're about 90 minutes into today's broadcast. We generally keep these at 2 hours or under. I try to. So if you guys have comments or questions for me, further comments or questions, just looking over at the chat now. And I'm happy to do my best to explain any reasoning, or if I've left you confused, I'll try my best. Or if you have unrelated questions, you feel free to ask them, and if I can answer them, I will. What we have here on this cable, well, not on this one, is a failure to communicate. Zvi says, why would you run all the tests and not just the first one? Well, the reasoning is I want the drive to heat up, right? So if we only run the first test, and then we go from the read test to the write test, chances are it's going to perform fine. I have seen, and we've demonstrated live on other, I'm trying to think if it was, typically it was a mini PC, I think was the most recent, was where when we run the test and we do all the read tests, and then we go to the write test falls by about 80% of performance. And you're like, oh, something's not right. And it's because the drive overheated. So what I'm trying to ascertain by running the whole test is to establish the highest temp, and then switch over to the writes. Because I wouldn't notice, honestly, If the drive was getting hot and it was doing those other I/O tests, I don't know. But when I see the sequential read speed, I have an idea of what I should be seeing. And when it's so extreme, right? If your read is like, oh, you got 5,000 on your reads and 300 on your writes, you're having an overheating problem that's causing the drive to throttle. So I hope that answers that question. I'm not doing it out of ritual. There is a reason, and that's why. And we didn't have any heat-related problems with either enclosure, FYI. Doman 2000 says, well, it does make an interesting test with an unexpected surprise instead of the usual routine procedure. I agree. I feel bad for the folks at ZikeDrive. We've never worked with them before. It's not our fault, but I'm sure they're not going to be happy about it. But honestly, neither am I. This is not what it should have done. David Graham mentions they're calling the cable a USB space 4 and not USB 4 without the space. It could be a typographical error. I wouldn't make too much about it. Lawn Dog says, these are the videos I like to see, are great companies to see because customers are not techs and they're not often loaded with spare equipment to swap out and try. Agreed. That's why I do them. We're on the same page. I'm glad you appreciate that and you get it. Not everybody gets it. Oh, Peter Laycock saying good night. Thanks for hanging out with us, Buster. We'll see you soon. Arnold Schmidt quotes Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Yep. Yep. I wonder if there are cables that can beat the score of the Orico. Well, I want to reiterate what I've said 3 times already. The maximum speed that the USB port can transfer at is 40 gigabits. That's 4,000 megabytes. We're at over 3,800 and we have error and parity overhead to verify the data being sent across the cable isn't being corrupted. And if it is, it's being fixed without you ever knowing it. The more data you're transferring, the more error and parity you need. So the faster the data transfer is, the percentage of error and parity goes up with the percentage of bits per second. So how much overhead, how much room is left, basically? If it could go faster, how much faster? 5 more megabytes? We could rerun the test 3 times in a row and get a variance of upwards of 10 megabytes per second. That's just normal. It won't be the same exactly twice in a row. There's really no more room to go. You've hit, the ceiling is here, right? You're like, how could I go above the ceiling? You'd have to cut a hole in the ceiling. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. So realistically, that's about as fast as that port can deliver the data, right? If you have a SATA 3 solid state drive, and that SATA 3 drive can transfer data internally in the drive, in the controller. If that can transfer data at Gen 4 speeds, SATA 3 is only going to move data at a maximum of 550 megabytes a second. no matter what you do. That's all it can fit. It's like you're trying to eat more than your stomach can hold. You can't, it's physics. You can't. I don't know how many ways I can say it. Can I put 10 pounds of stuff in this 5-pound bag? Go right ahead, sure. Why not? Probably going to need a 10-pound bag. I'm trying to be very clear on this. There's not much room to go. And if it is, it's insignificant and negligible that you would never see in the real world outside of benchmarks. It's just like you're fascinated with numbers and not reality. And that's okay, but that's not the way I work. So I can't expect anything to go any faster without going to a faster port. And as far as I know, no faster port exists. 40 gigs per second is pretty much it until we see Thunderbolt 5 or USB 4 Gen 2. And then we go to 80. Different story then. Photomix Media says, I want to hear your perspective. For you, it's important to get the latest drivers, updates, even firmware for one of your video cameras, but not a firmware update for an enclosure. So when I buy a brand new camera, I will check for firmware upgrades when it's new. Once it's set up and running, I don't check the firmware updates ever again. If I'm made aware that a firmware update exists for the camera, you know, I'm not looking for it, but it kind of comes to me, like I get an alert or somebody tells me. When I have time and I'm in the mood and I'm not broadcasting, I'll take the camera down, which takes it out of alignment, takes it out of focus. It takes all my pre-setup, it wipes it basically. And then I have to get a memory card. And when it's done, I don't see any difference whatsoever, ever. So it's just like the feel good, right? There's no advantage to it that I've ever seen. But I'm like, okay, now I got the latest firmware, so I feel better. But it's just a lot of work for nothing in my experience. So I don't actively pursue firmware updates on cameras. And besides, most cameras never have them. At least the cameras that I own very rarely get firmware updates, if ever. So motherboard BIOSes, there's always new RAM coming out, new chips coming out, new security issues coming out that your operating system's running on. There's a lot more at stake. With a camera, I mean, unless you're having focusing issues or there's some improvement in color accuracy or focus speed, maybe, I guess. But I'm a little confused right now. I'm not seeing myself on, I am on camera, okay. So my video is falling behind. I gotta refresh. I don't know why YouTube does that, but it was still showing me on the desktop and I'm like, am I still, aren't I on camera 1? I'm a little confused when YouTube does that and it's not refreshing. Great. Oh, and this one started over for some reason. Why did it start over? Well, that's weird. So I have 2 browser windows that monitor my YouTube channel, and both of them, okay, that one refreshed, and this one refreshed. I don't know why they needed a refresh. And it didn't refresh all the way. The chat room's not back. I'll refresh again. Now the chat room's back. All right, well, that has nothing to do with anything. That's just YouTube. Oh, my chat room did not come back on the other refresh. Let's do that again. Now everything looks normal. Okay. Badgerland Dan says hello. Welcome in, Dan. Arnold Schmidt says math and physics are the rules of engineering. Absolutely. Zvi wants to know, does the cable from Orico have a special label on the plug that indicates it's USB 4? Sometimes Sometimes they do. Let me go back to the desktop. There was our final numbers, right? Everything's good. Let's close this out and disconnect it the way you're supposed to. Down here, eject. Very good. Now, is there a USB 4 logo? I'll bring it up to the camera and show you. Are you suggesting if we just stuck a little logo on the other cable? It's the stickers. Hold on. I knew it was the stickers the whole time. Let's see. Let me walk around and get to the front of the camera. Here we go. Human origami. All right, so the Type-C end of the cable is blank, at least on this side. And then the Type-C on this side has a logo. It says 40 on it. And the Type-C on the Zike drive has a logo on it. You know, so much for the stickers idea. They have the same stickers, I think. I can't tell if that's upside down or not. Does it say T4? And the other side, does it say? Is it the same? It says Zike. I don't know. It shouldn't matter which end of the cable you plug into which, you know, if you plug it into the PC on one side of the cable or the other side of the cable, shouldn't matter. It's USB. The U in USB stands for universal. So, yeah. Although, we are always plugging this end into the PC, aren't we? Shouldn't matter. Oh, it doesn't say anything. It's just an arrow going up and down. Now I can see it. And this side says Zike. So if the side that says Zike goes into the Zike drive, this is the dumbest test ever. But now that I've been humbled, you know, now I'm questioning everything I thought was true. Maybe everything I thought was true is not true anymore. It should not matter. Shouldn't say that anymore. Okay, let's go back. Full screen. Usually if one end of a cable needs to plug into a device, that cable will be different on that end, so you cannot get it backwards, right? That's just logic. So I'm sure this won't make any difference. We've heard that before, Carey. Yeah, me too. We are on the F drive, and it's 2 terabytes. We are on the right drive. We are on the Zike enclosure with the Zike cable, with the Zike end of the cable plugged into the Zike drive, and it's made no difference. And just for grins and giggles, I'm going to turn the cable around the opposite way. We're going to plug the end into the PC, now into the Zike drive, and the end in the Zike drive into the PC. Give that a second, and it should initialize, and we're going to, yeah, there it goes. We're going to run it again. And it will be the same. See, I'm not always wrong. Today's not my day. Yeah, it's the same either way. So clearly, again, if the cable had to go in one side, they would make an adjustment so that the dumb end user couldn't screw that up and create an unnecessary support call that was completely avoidable. So it's not a question of the direction of the cable. They're both USB 4 cables. So why would you sell me a USB 4 enclosure without a USB 4 cable? The box says it comes with USB 4 cables right on it. Somebody's made a mistake. Question is it Zike or is it me? Because it's USB. It's supposed to be monkey-proof. David Graham contributes $2 in Super Chat. He says, I have an HDMI cable that's one directional. I don't think you do. No, I don't think you do, David. Thank you for the Super Chat, though. Arnold wants to know where the quality control labels are these days. I think they fell off. I cracked myself up. Dwayne Blackwelder says, thanks, Carey. Always honest and upfront. Thanks for showing us the new products that are out there. Right on. Well, thanks to Zike for sending us the drive, and I just think there's a mistake. Somebody made a mistake. This drive, if you Google test results of this drive, you won't see what you saw here today. And if you do, let me know. Easy Utter wants to know what are the chances of getting bad cables. That's what I'm saying. How weird is that? Frank Jimmy says that monkey-proof problem that's driving me bananas. For sure. Website states it comes with 2 cables. Yeah, we already covered that, Andy. Are you new here? Yeah, we did both cables. Yeah. What else? Sometimes we have viewers that jump into the middle of a video, don't bother watching what they missed, and then they jump in with a suggestion that repeats what I already said before they were here, or they weren't paying attention, and it drives me a little insane. Hey everybody, today's Thursday, the 12th of September. Hi Carey, did you know today's Thursday, the 12th of September? What did I just say? It's the downside of doing live video, is, you know, if we put DVR mode on, and I don't know if we have it on today, then people are watching 20 minutes behind and they're answering questions I asked 20 minutes ago, and I'm confused. Why are they talking about this? We already talked about this 20 minutes ago. If we turn DVR mode off, that forces everybody to watch, you know, at our current live place in time, then they missed everything if they join late and ask questions that we already answered. So I can't win. I mean, other than to just not do the live videos. So, you know, bear with me as a content creator. I'm not quite sure how to respond. I'm stuck. I've tried to solve this problem, and I don't know what else to do. Paul says, actually, it's Friday the 13th in Australia. Touché. Australia lives in the future. If you jump on a plane in America on Monday to fly to Australia, you lose Tuesday. You arrive on Wednesday. It's pretty freaky. What happened to Tuesday? It's gone. David Grab insists he's got a one-direction HDMI cable. I've got HDMI cables that are 25 feet, 30 feet long. They're not unidirectional. Send me a link to it, David. Let me see it. Because what happens if you turn it around the other way? It doesn't make any sense. How does the data, if you turn the cable this way, the data's got to go down. And if you turn it the other way, the data can't go up. It doesn't make any sense. Show me a link. Please. Optical cables are one direction. I don't think they are. I don't think so. The light shines through the fiber the same way. What would make that one directional? Unless it had power. Like if it was somehow being amplified electronically. I can't imagine how data would flow like an Ethernet cable. It doesn't matter which end. It's this. Look, think about it. You have a cable and it's the same on both ends. Who decides what end the data needs to go? Like, how is the data being sherped to its destination? How is one end of the cable different than the other end? Somebody explain this to me. If it's the same cable, how does one end of the cable vary from the other end? How are they two ends of the same cable? Doesn't make any sense. Logically, that doesn't compute. Doman says there are special long directional cables with extra circuitry. If there is electricity in the cable that's boosting the signal, then you want to boost the signal at its source, not at its destination. But it would have to be longer than 10 feet long. On an Ethernet cable, you'd have to go more than 100 meters. On an HDMI cable, you'd have to go longer than 50 feet. So on the super thin HDMI cables, I think I can go no more than 35 feet, but on a regular HDMI cable that doesn't use the super thin, you can buy 50-foot HDMI cables, I'm pretty sure. They're just regular HDMI cables. So if it's got circuitry in it, what's powering the circuitry? 10 feet's not enough. That you wouldn't, it's overkill. If you bought a boosted HDMI cable, it's 10 feet long, you wasted your money. Just saying. You got taken. Duplex fiber is both ways. Well, I know nothing about fiber, so I believe you. Richard Palmentier says I have my soundbar hooked to the TV with an optical connection on the soundbar. The soundbar is powered with an adapter, but not the optical cable. To be clear, what do they call that optical cable? It's called a Toslink cable. Doesn't have any power in it. Just light. And the soundbar, it needs power for the speakers, as would any speaker. I'm not aware of a powerless speaker. Other than, well, let me rephrase. PCs used to have those little speakers that go beep. And so they would get everything they needed from the audio signal for the little beep. Yeah. Paul Kitching says optical cables are just light tunnels. Correct. Yes. Ron Barnage says directional HDMI cables are more advanced than regular HDMI cables. What problem do they solve? I don't understand. In what scenario would you need a direct? How come in my entire life on this planet Earth, since the invention of the HDMI cable, I've never required one? Why would I buy one? What problem does it solve? I'm not debating whether or not they exist. I'm debating when you would need one. A 10-foot cable would not require power, would not require directional. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've got plenty of 10-foot HDMI cables. What am I missing? In fact, I have plenty of 25-foot HDMI cables we use in the studio, broadcasting. You see and hear me, right? I'm so confused. Are we talking about the same thing? I don't think we are. Doman says longer distances. That's what I said, right? Like extreme. You'd have to have some extreme distances. Directional passive boosting for long runs. So what's a long run? Is 10 feet a long run? David Collins says 75 to 100 feet. You're talking about an HDMI cable? That makes sense, yeah. David Graham says 50 feet and it's marked this end to source. Oh, 50 feet. Well, I have a 50-foot HDMI cable. I don't know why mine doesn't need power and yours does. Just because they sell it doesn't mean it's actually beneficial to you to buy it. Let me just verify. So I know I have 35 feet in the ultra thin HDMI cables, right? And I understand because the cables are really thin, they won't carry the HDMI signal as far as a thicker, less flexible HDMI cable. But I do believe if I go to Amazon and I type in 50-foot HDMI, there's no power. It doesn't matter which end you use. You don't need that for a 50-foot cable. They oversaw. You remember this company Monster Cables, and they would convince people to spend 10 times more on gold-plated audio cables because your audio would sound better? I think you kind of got taken in that to believe that to be true. I don't know that it's hurting you, okay? But you probably could have spent less and just bought a regular 50-foot HDMI cable, saved some money, and got the exact same results. But on the thin HDMI cables, I think 35 feet is as far as you can go. Can't remember what they're called. I'm just going to type in thin HDMI cable and see what comes up on Amazon for lengths. Yeah, I would agree. 75 feet would be an extraordinarily long run that would probably need to be boosted on HDMI for sure. That makes sense to me. Okay, thin HDMI cable. There's the 10-footers. 15-foot, 25-foot, 30-foot, not 35, 30. 30 feet seems to be the distance limit on the thin, really super thin HDMI cables that support 2160p, 4K, 60 hertz, 18 gigabits per second. 30 feet. And there's no booster. So the thicker the cable is, the less resistance you're going to get. But then the longer the cable is, the more resistance you're going to get. So it's a combination of how thick is the cable, how far are you running it. And believe me, if a company has an opportunity to get you to pay more for something you don't need, I'm not saying it's hurting anything other than your wallet, but I do believe you could have just bought a regular cable and you would see no difference. At distances at 50 feet or less anyway on HDMI. Brian B said, I would just laugh at the salesman that tried to sell me the monster HDMI 6-foot cable for $120. Oh, and people believed they needed to spend that. They were absolutely convinced. And it works. So as far as they know, they needed to spend it. They don't know any better. All right, so we're just past our 2-hour mark, and I think that we've gone a long way from Well, I mean, we're on cables. I mean, I see how we got there to video stuff versus data stuff, but at the end of the day, it's all data anyway. These days, everything's digital. However, we're going to follow up with this as soon as we get information. I'm sure Zike's going to need to confirm this. They're probably not going to believe it either, right? And then we're going to go from there, and then we'll share with you what we learn from Zike as we learn it. You'll be the first to know. Tomorrow, we do a live video every Friday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Tomorrow's Friday. And I think tomorrow I want to go back to the Synology 923 that we started reviewing. The move has interrupted everything. And where we left off with that was we got the drives installed and configured. And the next thing is to install the 10 gig port upgrade. I have a 10 gig switch, brand new in a box. Still has shrink wrap on it. Hopefully everything's in there and it works. And then I need a 10 gig PC so I can hardwire the 10 gig to the switch, or from the PC to the switch, and then 10 gig from the switch to the Synology, and then do some sample file transfers. And I have a small desk to fit all this on, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet. I'll work on putting that together tonight, but I think that'll be the subject matter for tomorrow's Friday video. We try to make the Friday videos financially the most expensive video of the week. And if that means, you know, we're dealing with high-end processors, high-end products in general, if we can afford to keep doing that, we want to. In the case of Synology, they did send us the unit. They sent us some drives, and they sent us the 10 gig network port upgrade, but we have to provide our own PC, our own 10 gig network card upgrade in the PC, our own 10 gig switch. So we have a bunch of our own income invested into this one video that will never make back from viewership alone, ad supported revenue. It just won't make it back. So your memberships are what make these possible. I can't emphasize that enough. I want to also remind you that our friends at Acronis, who make the backup and cloning software I've been using in my business, it's got to be it's at least since 2008 anyway. Whether or not they offer you guys a discount or they work with us, I still use their product regardless. And they're offering all our viewers 30% off throughout the rest of this year. And our friends at RoboForm, that's the password manager I've been using even longer, they're offering all new RoboForm subscribers 30% off. And when I buy license keys for the computers I build or Microsoft Office keys for my clients, I'm buying them from VIP CDK deals, and I'm using the same discount code that's being offered to you, the word Carey, for 30% off. And I have to support that for my clients. They have to be legal, legitimate keys that have support, or I can't sell them in my professional business. All of these products that we've reached out to these manufacturers for, these are the only manufacturers that have responded back of all the ones we've asked that are willing to work with us. So they all have free trials. You don't have to take my word for anything. And we have interviews with these companies demonstrating their products. If you're not familiar with what they are or how they work, just type in CareyHolzman in the name of the product I just mentioned, and you'll see the video walkthrough and decide for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Try it before you buy it. If you don't see the value in it, don't buy it. I'm not going to twist your arm. But if you do want to buy it, don't pay full retail. 30% off. I would. Anyway, thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. Thanks to our members and our viewers. Thanks to Mara for all the work she does in the background. And a thank you to Zike for sending us the drive for testing. I'm sure we'll both be surprised at the follow-up, but that's okay. It is what it is, and we will get a follow-up. Thank you for watching. I will see you, hopefully all of you, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Friday the 13th. Spooky. Hey, it's Friday the 13th tomorrow, Mara.
Yay! Woo-hoo! My favorite day.
If only Halloween could fall on Friday the 13th. Could it be Friday the 31st? Just reverse the 13th?
Halloween for me every day.
Mara likes the dark and macabre. Macabre? Thanks for watching. We'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.